The twin suns rose slowly over the red soil of Ardan 6. The colony shimmered beneath its transparent dome, a glittering pearl on the edge of known space. Families went about their morning routines. Children ran through the gardens, drones tended the crops, and engineers prepared shuttles for trade runs. The colony had lived in peace for 30 years, far from the noise of the core worlds. To its people, war was something they read about in old history lessons. Captain Elias Train stood at the edge of the observation deck, watching the sun climb above the horizon. He had served in Earth's Navy long ago, but here he found peace. His post was quiet, his crew friendly, his life simple. The worst thing he faced most days was a broken water pump or a shipment delayed from Mars. Ardan 6 was a dream, a home built on hope, not fear, but that dream ended at 03:47 Standard Time. The first warning came as static. The colony's communication tower flickered, lights dimming as if something enormous blocked the signal. Then the power grid began to fail. Drones fell from the sky, engines cut off. The winds outside the dome began to roar with unnatural force. The security sensors showed motion, shadows in the upper atmosphere, dark and fast, descending. Lieutenant Mara Kane called from the control room. "Captain, we're getting multiple contacts, no transponder signals. They're not human." Before Train could answer, the sky turned black. Something massive entered orbit. The air trembled. The colony's dome vibrated as a sound like thunder rolled across the plains. A moment later, the night lit up. Streaks of blue plasma rained down, tearing through the surface like claws. Panic spread through the colony. Families rushed for the shelters. The emergency siren screamed, but the comms remained dead. Train and his crew scrambled to the command center, but the screen showed only chaos. Fires, debris, falling buildings. "Who are they?" Mara shouted, clutching the console. Train stared at the images. The ships were like nothing he had ever seen. Long, sharp vessels covered in glowing lines moving with perfect silence. No engines, no radio chatter. They drifted like shadows, firing without hesitation. "They're not here to invade," Train said quietly. "They're here to erase us." Outside, the sky was a storm of light. The dome cracked, pieces of glass falling like rain. People screamed as the pressure dropped. Air rushed out into the cold void. Train ordered the evacuation to the underground vaults. But the tunnel systems collapsed before half the colony could reach them. In the control tower, a single message flickered across the screen. An emergency transmission trying to escape the blackout. Mara managed to route it through an old sub-channel that connected to the Earth relay network. The signal was weak, distorted by static and interference. Still, she hit send. "Colony Ardan 6 under attack. Unknown fleet. Civilian casualties severe. Request immediate aid." The transmission cut off as the power core overloaded. The shockwave threw Mara across the room. Train tried to pull her up, but the light was too bright. The control center disintegrated in a burst of plasma. From orbit, the enemy fleet turned away, leaving nothing but ash and silence. The once living colony was now a smoldering crater on a dead world. Hours later, the distress signal reached Earth. Inside the Global Defense Network, technicians replayed the damaged footage. It showed fragments, children running, the dome cracking, the strange black ships. Then a single broken voice. "They are not here to conquer. They are here to erase." Admiral Kira Solis watched the feed in silence. The room around her was filled with whispers and fear. The officers spoke of caution, of verification, of diplomatic channels, but she said nothing. She only looked at the final frame. Captain Train standing against the burning sky, his face half lit by fire. When the video ended, the room fell quiet. Solis turned to her officers and spoke in a cold, steady voice. "Mark this day. Humanity's peace has ended. They destroyed a human world. Now they will see what we become when the silence breaks." Outside, in the orbiting shipyards of Earth, the lights began to turn on, one by one. Dormant engines hummed to life. Workers who had never known war stared out into the stars, where a new kind of darkness waited. The fall of Ardan 6 was not the end. It was the beginning of humanity's wrath. The news of Ardan 6 reached every corner of human space within hours. Screens flickered in homes, outposts, and stations. The image of the burning colony looped endlessly, an ocean of red flame swallowing the domes, the sky darkening with alien ships that seemed to move like ghosts. Across colonies, people whispered the same words with shaking voices. They destroyed an entire world. On Earth, the global defense citadel came alive for the first time in 50 years. The council chamber, a circular room of steel and light, filled with the most powerful leaders humanity had. Generals, admirals, presidents, scientists, and envoys stood in tense silence. The air was heavy, the sound of distant alarms echoing through the reinforced walls. Admiral Kira Salas walked to the center podium. Her uniform bore the old scars of war. She was one of the last veterans who remembered what humanity once was capable of. She placed a hand on the table, and the holographic image of Ardan 6 appeared, burning, breaking apart. They struck without warning, she began, her voice calm but edged with steel. They did not claim territory. They did not take prisoners. They erased a colony of 50,000 souls. This was not an act of war. This was extermination. President Rowan, leader of the Unified Earth Council, raised a trembling hand. We do not know who they are. We do not know their reason. We cannot wait, Salas interrupted. Waiting is what they count on. We waited when the colonies needed better defenses. We waited when the border patrols went missing. And now we have graves instead of answers. The room broke into argument, voices clashing, fear rising. Some demanded diplomacy, others demanded retreat. But Salas stood still, watching the chaos around her, knowing that fear would destroy them faster than any alien fleet. Then a quiet voice spoke. It was Dr. Ilya Marin, the astrophysicist who decoded the enemy signal patterns. He activated a projection, a visual of the alien energy signatures. Their ships use subspace distortions, not engines. Their weapons are based on matter conversion. I have traced the energy trail to a sector beyond our charts. They are called the Vorkai Dominion, and they will come again. Salas turned toward him. How long? 2 weeks, maybe less. The chamber fell silent again. Outside, in the lower hangars, technicians were already at work. Old warships, veterans of forgotten battles, were dragged from orbiting museums and repair yards. Dusty hulls were stripped, engines reignited, cannons refitted with new plasma cores. The Titan-class dreadnoughts, relics from an older, crueler time, roared back to life. On Mars, the shipyards built Project Leviathan, a weapon so massive it was whispered about even among engineers. A warship powered by an entire city's energy grid, capable of firing a rail projectile the size of a shuttle. It was humanity's ultimate deterrent, long sealed away. Now, under Salas's command, it would rise again. In the colony worlds, recruitment centers overflowed. Pilots, soldiers, and civilians volunteered in record numbers. No one needed convincing. Every human had seen the smoke of Ardan 6, and they wanted to make sure it would never happen again. Meanwhile, Salas visited the memorial site in New Geneva. The monument still showed the names of the dead from the last war, polished and quiet. She ran her hand over the cold metal, remembering the faces she lost. You always warned me, she whispered, that peace would make us forget who we are. That night, she gathered her command team, Admiral Rios, Commander Ilara Voss, and Dr. Marin in the Citadel's war room. The holographic map of the galaxy rotated slowly, glowing blue against their faces. The Vorkai operate from deep space sectors, Rios said. They have no known homeworlds, just fleets that drift and harvest whatever they find. They feed on destruction, Ilara added. Every colony they attack leaves nothing alive. Salas looked around the table. Then we show them what humanity becomes when pushed to the edge. She pressed her hand on the console. A new command flashed across every military terminal across the solar system. Operation Dawnfire. Authorized mobilize all fleets. Prepare for full retaliatory action. From the moon's hidden shipyards, hundreds of warships lifted into orbit. From Europa's ice cities, long-range carriers ascended through storms. From Earth itself, fighter wings formed in formation, their engines glowing blue against the dark. Humanity's silence had ended. The media tried to calm the public, but fear had already turned to fury. Across networks, a phrase began spreading like wildfire, a single line of defiance repeated by every voice, every screen, every soldier preparing for war. They took one colony. Now they will face all of Earth. As Salas stood in the observation bay of the flagship Erebus, she gazed at the stars, so beautiful, so distant, yet filled with hidden enemies. Commander Ilara Voss approached her quietly. Admiral, when this begins, it will not end easily. I know, Salas replied. But humanity does not seek war. We answer it. Outside the window, the fleet began to move, engines flaring across the night sky. Dozens of ships formed into tight formation, their hulls shining silver under the glow of distant sunlight. For the first time in generations, the galaxy would see the full might of humankind. And this time it would not be for conquest or pride. It would be for the fallen, for every voice that was silenced on Ardan 6. The message was clear. 2 weeks after the fall of Ardan 6, the stars over Sol burned brighter than ever. Every shipyard from Luna to Mars glowed with blue engines and welding fire. The once quiet void around Earth now hummed with energy and thunder. Humanity had awakened. Admiral Kira Solis stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Erebus, watching the fleet assemble. Hundreds of ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, and escorts moved into perfect formation. Their hulls shimmered silver, each engraved with the same line on the side, for Ardan 6. Commander Ilara Voss reported from the lower deck. All squadrons confirmed and armed. The Leviathan is charging its rail system. Once we breach the gate, there is no turning back. Solis nodded. Then we make sure they never come back either. A blue portal opened ahead of the fleet, the hyperspace gate built for trade and exploration, now repurposed for war. The ships entered one by one, vanishing into light. The moment the Erebus crossed, the galaxy changed forever. The Vorkai Dominion had grown arrogant. Their fleet drifted near the remains of Ardan 6, feeding on energy left from destruction. They laughed in their strange, clicking language about the weakness of humans. To them, the massacre was nothing more than a test. They expected no reply. Then their sensors screamed. Out of hyperspace came fire. The Erebus and her escorts tore into real space like falling meteors. Railguns roared, launching tungsten rounds at near-light speed. The first projectile ripped through a Vorkai cruiser, splitting it clean in half. The second struck their command ship, vaporizing it before the crew could react. In seconds, what was once an invasion fleet turned into a graveyard of burning wreckage. Inside the Erebus, Solis gave her next order. All ships, spread and strike. Show them what humanity truly is. The fleet scattered like arrows. Fighters darted through enemy lines, weaving between energy beams. Carriers launched waves of drones, each armed with plasma torpedoes. Human pilots fought with terrifying precision, every maneuver fueled by memory of the lost colony. There was no fear, no hesitation, only vengeance. The Leviathan arrived last. The gigantic warship eclipsed the stars, its hull kilometers long. Its railgun glowed a brilliant white, energy pulsing through its core. On the command deck, engineers braced as the magnetic coils reached full charge. Target, Vorkai Battle Station, called the gunnery chief. Solis gave a simple nod. Fire. The sound was like thunder in the void. A single slug launched from the barrel, moving faster than any weapon ever fired by man. It struck the alien station dead center. The explosion that followed lit the darkness for thousands of kilometers. Whole fleets turned to dust. The Vorkai tried to retreat, but hyperspace lanes collapsed under the human barrage. They were trapped. Ships begged for surrender, sending desperate signals across frequencies. Solis listened to the messages in silence. Hundreds of alien voices crying for mercy. Commander Voss turned to her. Orders, Admiral. Solis looked out the viewport, her reflection caught against the fire outside. End it. The Erebus and her sister ships unleashed everything. Missiles, plasma, kinetic storms. The sky itself seemed to burn. When it was over, only silence remained. No Vorkai ships moved. No lights flickered. The invincible Dominion had fallen within hours. But even amid victory, a strange stillness filled the bridge. Dr. Marin studied the remaining fragments of the Vorkai network. Their fleets weren't just war machines, he said quietly. They were living ships, sentient. They felt fear. Solis said nothing. She only watched as the wreckage drifted past the viewport, pieces of alien hull floating like ashes in space. News of the battle spread across every human channel. Colonies cheered. Earth's streets filled with celebration. Children looked up at the night sky, now knowing their species had struck back against extinction. But on the Erebus, the victory did not feel clean. It felt heavy, too quiet for something so vast. Solace walked through the med bay past the wounded pilots and engineers. Their eyes burned with pride and pain. Humanity had proved its strength, but at a cost no one could measure. That night, she recorded a message to the Council. Ardan 6 has been avenged. The Vorkai Dominion is destroyed. But we have crossed a line we can never uncross. The galaxy will remember this day not as a victory, but as a warning. In the silence of deep space, the Erebus drifted through the debris field. Its lights cut through clouds of smoke and dust. The stars beyond glimmered cold and distant, as if watching what humanity had done. And far from sight, in a dark region beyond the known charts, another signal stirred, something vast, older, and far more dangerous than the Vorkai. It listened to the echoes of the battle and whispered into the void. So, the humans have awakened. The war was not over. It had only begun. The war ended faster than anyone expected. In only 6 days, the Vorkai Dominion, an empire that had ruled the edges of the galaxy for centuries, was gone. Their fleets reduced to drifting wrecks. Their home sectors silent, and the stars that once feared their name now whispered another, humanity. Admiral Kira Solace stood on the observation deck of the Erebus, staring into the graveyard of ships. Thousands of broken hulls floated in the void like bones of ancient beasts. The glow of burning reactors painted the darkness in dull, haunting colors. It should have felt like victory, but it did not. Commander Alara Voss joined her, her uniform still scorched from battle. She said quietly, "It's over." Solace shook her head. "No, it never is." A distant explosion rippled across space, one of the last Vorkai reactors collapsing. The soundless light faded slowly, leaving nothing but emptiness. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Solace whispered, "Do you hear it?" "Hear what?" "The silence," she said. "It's louder than the war." Back on Earth, celebrations erupted across every city. Fireworks burst above glass towers. Streets overflowed with people waving banners of blue and silver. Children wore badges reading for Ardan 6. Every news feed broadcast humanity's triumph, the unstoppable force that shook the galaxy. But in the hospitals and memorials, the story was quieter. Thousands of soldiers did not return. Entire squadrons were gone, names replaced by code numbers and silent honors. Families received folded flags and digital letters that ended the same way. They fought for all of us. The Council called for Admiral Solace to return for a hero's address. But she did not go. She remained with her fleet anchored near the ruins of Ardan 6. The planet was cold now, its red soil blackened by glass and shadow. No life, no sound. The colony dome was nothing but twisted metal. Solace ordered a landing team to begin restoration, not for war, but for memory. As she stepped onto the scorched ground, she felt the crunch of ash beneath her boots. In the center of the ruin stood a single half-buried object, a child's toy, melted and broken. She knelt, picked it up, and stared at it for a long time. The wind whispered through the wreckage, faint and hollow. Ilara approached behind her. "We won, Admiral. We gave them justice." Solace turned the toy in her hand. "Justice?" she said softly. "I wonder if we still remember what that means." Weeks passed. The human fleets withdrew. Earth's name now carried weight beyond imagination. The galaxy trembled at its shadow. Alien races sent envoys begging for alliances, protection, trade. The once scattered species now spoke Earth's language in fear and respect, but Solace knew the truth. Humanity had crossed something invisible, a point of no return. In a private meeting aboard the Erebus, she spoke to Dr. Ilya Marin. "How many?" she asked. He hesitated. "Civilian casualties on their side?" "Unknown. Their ships were half organic, Admiral. When we destroyed them, it wasn't only machines that died. Solace leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. Then we killed not just their fleet, but their children too. The scientist said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Days later, a small ceremony took place on the surface of Ardan 6. Engineers had cleared a flat space among the ruins. There they placed a single monument, smooth black stone rising from the ashes. No grand design, no glowing lights. Just one engraved line. They tried to erase us. We answered, "May neither act be forgotten." Solace stood before it as the last rays of sunlight touched the horizon. Around her, survivors from different colonies gathered. Soldiers, workers, families. Some cried quietly, others stood in silence. When it was over, she spoke softly to her crew. "Leave it as it is. Let the wind speak for them." As the fleet lifted from the surface, Solace gave one final order. No further strikes, no pursuit missions. The war ends here. Ilara frowned. "And if they come back, then we defend," Solace replied. "But we will not become what we fought." Months later, as the Erebus traveled back toward Sol, she recorded a final message for the Council, a report that would never be broadcast to the public. "Victory feels empty when it costs a part of your soul. We have proven humanity's strength, yes, but also its danger. The galaxy fears us now, and perhaps they should. But I fear what comes after fear, the day when even we begin to believe we are gods." She ended the recording there and watched the stars drift past. Each one looked peaceful, untouched by war. In her mind, she still heard the voices of the fallen, the cries from Ardan 6, the screams of the Vorkai, the silence that followed. She whispered into the dark, "Never again." The Erebus vanished into hyperspace, its engines fading into the void. The ashes of Ardan 6 scattered slowly, drifting into the endless black. And somewhere beyond the edges of known space, something ancient listened once more.